first and foremost, just want to acknowledge and let everyone know at University of Michigan and Chad Carr's family that we're deeply sorrowed by his passing on Monday. It's tragic when those type of things happen, and just wanted to reach out. Also want to congratulate Sarah Covan, who was with our soccer team, and she's just become a Rhodes Scholar and selected as a Rhodes Scholar this past week or this week. So I want to congratulate her. Big program win last week, obviously, and gives us double-digit wins, I think, for the fifth time here since 2010. So that's exciting. Our seniors' last game will be a big part of this game. Got a large group of seniors and guys that, we win one more football game. They tie the all-time record for the most wins, going back, I think, to the class last year and the class before it, actually. So added significance there. And then obviously our goal is to win the East, and that's the first primary object of this football game. Beat Penn State, win the East. Penn State's has a good football team. Very impressed with their defense. 44 sacks, leads the Big Ten Conference. Physical, very physical front, physical linebackers, thumpers. Secondary plays well. I think that they have an outstanding quarterback in Hackenberg. Very talented freshman running back, Barkley, and skilled players that surround them. So I'll take some questions. We'll go from there.
Mark, last year after Senior Day, Curtis Drummond said everyone talks about players leaving, but he said it hit him when he hugged you with his family before the game that you'd become such a big part of his life that he wasn't going to see you every day. And he got emotional and said it was like leaving a father. I'm just curious, you see these kids on the football field and people see your interaction, but how difficult is Senior Day? Because football is a very small part of the impact you have on their lives.
Yeah, Senior Day's not too bad for me. The tough day for me is the last practice at the bowl game, because that's when, we'll have another month together and some practices, but that last bowl practice is when it hits me that these guys are gone, and it's so abrupt because, guys are graduating and they're leaving. Guys are going to work out on their own and they're leaving, and you don't see them. All of a sudden, there's just sort of a void. You don't see them, and it's sort of it's very rapid. It's just sort of a cutoff. So, but I appreciate what he says, and like I've always said, our goals are about the relationships with our players, and that stands as our goal. It's people. It's a people-driven job, people-driven.
Mark, going off that, you just mentioned how these seniors, if they win on Saturday, have a chance to tie the winningest classes of all time. Just what is it extra special for these guys, players like Connor and Shalik, who've played such a big role these past few years, that they get to have their Senior Day at home, where this program has been so dominant for the better part of the last half decade?
Yeah, I think it's exciting when they have it at home. It's also emotional, and we have to take the emotional aspect out of it a little bit because we need to be ready to play this football game. So that's very, very critical to I think us playing in this game. You got to make sure that things are as much as we can make it the same, and you need to concentrate on the football game. But it is an emotional aspect of it. I think it's exciting. Should have a great crowd. It's an exciting day. It's a chance to win a championship. It's a very good quality football team. Penn State, Michigan State, we've had great games in the past and that type of thing. It really started all the way back with Coach Paterno and Coach Perlis when Penn State entered the Big Ten Conference, I believe. And they started playing that game at the end of the season. So there's a little history there to that. So should be an exciting moment.
Coach, I think you said yesterday Connor is day-to-day. As far as Damian and Tyler O'Connor go, though, do you look at expanding a package for them? Because it's obviously a just-in-case kind of thing, or did they pretty much do what they can do last Saturday?
No, I mean, they run the same package. I don't want to talk about football, but we don't create packages for guys. They're in our system. They need to grow within our system. It's not like these guys only run these plays. They need to grow within our system. I think that our game plan last week was a little bit more predicated on weather as much as anything else.
Mark, I know we've talked in the past about coming off a big win and how this team, or what you have to do to kind of get them back focused quickly, but it seems like that's something they've done really well on their own through the last few years. What's the key? What makes this team so good at that, being able to dial back in so quickly?
Well, when you come and when you first get here, you sort of get rocked in one game and then you have to respond. This is a process, and I say it all the time. Everybody sees the product, but they don't see the process that goes into what we're trying to become or what we have become. But maturity, senior leadership, maybe having games where we didn't respond early in the time here. Now there's a big point of emphasis is after a big game, how do you handle it? Whether it's something bad or whether it's something good, but after you've done something, how do you handle it? And how do you handle success? How do you handle adversity? And I think that's the message we try and send our guys, not just about football, but about everything that they're trying to do. And hopefully that's getting through, but no more critical time than this game. There's no more critical time in this game. We need to be ready to play. I think we will.
Mark, I wondered if you noticed at the basketball game last night there was a new cheer called the Geiger. Did you see that?
I heard that was going to happen. I was in meetings and stuff, so I didn't see it, but I heard it might happen. Somebody told me that.
Hey, your two arch rivals, you never led for a second and won both games. What is that? And two guys became instant heroes that were otherwise not. What does that say about what you've preached for years here about seizing the moment?
Well, I think you got to play to the last play in the game, and we played certainly for that play this last week, but we just keep playing. The game's not ever over until it's done, and at the end of the day, we can go through all the scenarios, but there's a win on this side and there's a loss on this side, one way or the other. Same thing could be said. We didn't finish the Nebraska game. It's right there. We could have won it, but we did not. So. There's good things that happen at the end of the game and bad, but we found a way to win. I think it speaks to the foundation of the program, really, in terms of what I said earlier to some people. We know how to win. We understand how to win. Now you have to do that, but we do understand what it takes to win. We understand how to play to the end of the game.
Mark, kind of off that, I'm curious. I know the situation is different, but do you remember back in 2010 the preparation going into that Penn State game where you eventually clinched the first Big Ten title? I know you still have more games that you'd have to play this year, but do you remember your message and how has that changed to what you'll tell the guys going into this week?
Well, I think we need to keep our message, first of all, in-house a little bit, but yeah, I do remember that message, and I remember that feeling and what we were going through on the way to that game, and I also remember going up there in 2008 and not getting it done. And that might be as big a message as anything, but we'll keep this year's message sort of locked in.
Mark, you mentioned before when maybe you didn't win some of those close games that you guys win now and play to the end in the process. What would you think is the biggest difference between now and then when you guys look like at the end of a game you're going to pull it out seemingly every time, where in the past that wasn't the case? What changed? What is the difference?
Well, first of all, you got to go back pretty far to say when haven't we? So that's the first thing. You're talking. How many years ago are you talking now? Where you want to use the same old Spartan type of thing, because that's not in existence. Hasn't been in existence for a long time. So we've won games back in 2010 at the last play. We've won. How many games have we won around here on the last play of the game? 7. So that's happened for quite a while, and I think that's a product of our environment, and that's the players, and that's the belief system that's with our players, and that's our seniors and our playmakers, and our guys don't give up on each other, and we make plays. But in 2000 whatever, we kicked a field goal out here with 3 seconds to beat Wisconsin. We were down by 10 with 2 minutes to go or something. 2008 we beat Purdue, I believe. Blocked a field goal at the end of the game. So this has been going on for quite a while, and it's part of the culture here, hopefully. It needs to stay part of the culture.
It could have been interpreted Saturday that maybe one unintended dividend that you got from having two quarterbacks play who weren't accustomed to starting games, that already they were getting some significant acid tests in terms of preparation for down the road. I know you have to be concerned, Mark, with this season. But could you talk about that particular aspect of their performance and even more specifically, how do Terry and O'Connor compare in terms of their skill sets?
Well, first of all, I've said it all along, whether you're talking about the offensive line or you're talking about our secondary. You know, when guys play on game day and they get game experience, they grow. They grow as players. And there's probably no place that they grow more than in a quarterback. You know, with the pressures of being a quarterback in a setting on the road, in a tight game, in a game that had so much meaning behind it. So, you know, that makes our program stronger. You know, same things happen on the offensive line and the secondary, various places on our football team. And so it should increase our value, I think. As far as their skill set, they're very, very similar in a lot of ways, yet different. So, you know, that's for other people to figure out and not for me to lay out. But they're both very good quarterbacks. They both have a huge upside. They both have experience in big games now, not just in this game, but they both played last in the Maryland game as well. So they're 2 games in. And that's a big positive for those guys, and that'll carry through to the 2016 season. There's no question, and the remainder of the 2015 season in terms of just preparation. You know, when you go to practice and you don't think that you're going to play, practice sort of becomes mundane a little bit. You go to practice and you know that you're going to be playing, that there's a possibility, a real possibility that they're going to stick you in there and you're going to be playing meaningful game minutes. All of a sudden, it takes on a whole different twist in terms of preparation off the field, preparation on your own, preparation in the classroom, those type of things. Much more meaningful.
Mark, I wanted to ask you about Kings. Obviously, he botched the punt the other day. Mm-hmm. Big mistake, and the cameras kind of caught you guys having an interaction. I just wonder what you said to him there, and at moments like that, I guess how important is it to put your arm around a kid? And then also, how has he responded in general this year and played?
First of all, McGarrett King's been a big playmaker here for 4 years, really for 3 years. You go back to the 13 season, he's made a lot of plays here. Secondly, he's an extremely competitive guy, and he's fearless. Third, I was more upset when he caught the ball on the 4-yard line than I was after he missed the punt. He was trying to make a play. It was very windy out there. The wind was blowing. He should have let it go, but, you know, how many punts has he caught for us? Very difficult times. So if you've ever lined up underneath a punt, you'll understand how difficult it is. So it's very difficult art to be able to master. And so what I said to him off the field is, don't worry about it. Let's go. Don't get down on yourself. And I was ready to put him back in. So, you know, that was about the extent of it. Let's get on with it.
Mark, I remember at the Final Four rally when Izzo brought you out and talked about double national championships. I'm not asking you to look ahead. I know you got to beat Penn State, but, you know, one team's number 3, one team's number 6. What does that mean of all the conversations you and Tom have had about both teams being this highly touted?
Well, I think we're to a point where both teams can go into any game and have the opportunity to win. I've always felt that, but both teams have an opportunity, whoever you play, to line up and be competitive with that particular team. Doesn't mean we're going to win, but you have a legitimate shot to win that football game. And, you know, the game's inches, you know. It's a free throw, it's a rebound, it's a tip pass, whatever it is. So, you know, Spartans will, I guess. Yeah, we have. You know, I think you have to dream big. You have to dream big as players, and I think you also have to dream big as a coach. You know, when I first came here in 2000, it was November 2006, I talked about these moments, that these moments were possible here. And it's exciting to see those things happen. But there's so many different people that have created that road to those moments. You know, our players, our past players, you know, our past coaches, you know, our coaches currently, our administration, everybody. There's so many different people that are a part of this. It's hard to even you know, go through them all. But this is this is what we hope for, certainly. And I still maintain, when I came here, you looked across Munfield and you saw championships, and I looked across there. But when I watched our basketball practices and I watched their how they came down to every single game at the end of the game and how they played it out, and they would win at the buzzer, or how they'd come back, or the different things that I saw when I was here before, Mateen Cleaves and some of those guys, Charlie Bell, Mo Peterson, those guys, Flintstones. And I saw how they would win games down the stretch. There was a message there. When I walked over and I watched basketball practice and I saw the competitiveness on the basketball court and the communication that's taken place on the basketball court between the players, you see championship effort, and you see championship communication, trust, and those type of things. And it's something that you want to emulate.
Mark, when you make the decision on Connor this week, are there degrees in which he has to be a certain health and he'll play regardless, or he's available but you may use other guys and use him if needed? And how do you kind of go into that decision?
I think there's a possibility for all those, certainly. We'll see how it all shakes out. But, so it's sort of hard to say when we're sitting, because Tuesday, not practice, don't know, so I would assume that things are moving forward. But, it's hard to assess those things until you get to game day. It really is, because it hinges on very small things, I think.
Mark, coming into the season, a lot was expected of this offensive line, and then they had a lot of injuries they dealt with and whatnot. They've been mostly healthy the last couple of weeks, but really kind of came together last week. Did you see any indications that sort of, breakout performance, almost dominating in the run game, was coming from those guys?
I think an offensive line, first of all, has to play together, and when they're not playing together for a certain amount of time, they get a little rusty. That's number one. Number two is, and I keep saying this over and over, it's not just the offensive line protecting the quarterback. Quarterback has to make the right protection calls at times. He has to get the ball out. Receivers have to get loose. So there's a lot of determining factors in terms of pass protection. Same thing with running the football. The running back has to find the crease. There's tight ends involved in blocking. Paul Lang's having his best season as a Spartan right now. And, we always say seniors have to have their best years. I think he's having one of those years. There's fullbacks, Trevin Pendleton, the plays that he's made. So there's a lot to it. There's structure. So there's a lot to running the football as well. So I think we've always had a very good offensive line here this year, but I just think that we've been banged up with injuries. Right now, we're pretty healthy, and there's some cohesiveness to it. Not that there hasn't been before, but they're playing more together in terms of they're getting reps together, practice reps and things like that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mark, will you watch the rankings tonight with interest? And also, do you think that the Big Ten strength is such now that the Big Ten champion, whoever it is definitely in the playoff or definitely should be in the playoff?
I think that, first of all, I'll be in meetings and somebody will walk down and say, this is where we're at. That's what I think will happen, because I'm going to concentrate on what we can do. The best thing that we can do right now is focus on Penn State. And then everything else, to me, sort of works out. Just do what you do and good things happen. That's usually been the best way that I've tried to approach things and let other people do their job.
Mark, your philosophy when you got here on the offensive line is get 5 guys and stick with them. And to his credit, Coach Staten convinced you to go in more of a hockey approach, which has worked. Used to be ride the hot hand with running back, and now you're seeing some changes where you went with LJ. I'm just curious, how important is it for a staff to not be rigid and to evolve like you guys have with running backs, philosophy, and offensive line?
I think you have to be flexible as people. You have to look at different ways to do different things, certainly, and you always have to have new wrinkles in what you're doing. I thought Gerald played very, very well. We got to the last series, and based on LJ's series before that, I just felt like he was hot, and so that's what we went with. But we got good running backs. I mean, Delton Williams played in there. We played 4 running backs this last weekend, so that's a good problem to have. And they're all physical. They all sort of play off. They all have a little bit something different than the other guy does, but they all sort of play off each other. They're all close to each other as people.
Mark, you mentioned this class has a chance to have the wins record, and it's the class that you got right after winning that first championship. I'm just wondering if there's any correlation there. I know the recruiting process goes back further than that, but, I mean, is there a correlation there to where the program was getting to at that point and then getting, I guess, a better recruiting class?
You know, when we come in and we have our freshmen come in and we really look hard in those first days of August practice, what do our freshmen look like? That's the big exciting thing when you come in. You know what your sophomores and everybody, the other guys, but you will sort of wonder, hey, what do these new freshmen look like? And I remember in 2011 when we were going through that, Harlan Barnett said, we'll have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 pro players in this class. And that's what it's shaping up to be, high draft choices. And that's what it's shaping up to be. So we had high expectations for those guys from day one. I don't get into all the rankings and all that kind of stuff because people grow and they develop between 18 and 22. There's a huge difference in who they come as and who they leave as in terms of physical development, mental development, all those different things, confidence, injuries, those type of things. So, you know, we've had some guys. These guys are good players, and you know, as their record indicates.
Hey, Coach, is the team doing anything special for Thanksgiving? I know players, you know, not often get a chance to go home.
We give our players a little bit of a chance to go home. The ones that are living near here, we give them 24 hours off. So we'll practice in the morning, and they'll get off for 24. Then we'll get back together Friday afternoon, early afternoon. But so a lot of the players take people home with them, guys that live farther away. Coaches have people over as well. So we make sure that everybody's got someplace to go. And I think they sort of want to get away from us, so we don't have an organized team meal. We do on Friday when they get back.
Coach, I want to ask you about your safeties, your Pennsylvania guys back there. Monte and Demetrius, last couple games they've been back there together. Can you talk about their growth, and is your safety play on par with where it's been at Michigan State in past years yet?
First of all, we've got Damian Terry and Delton Williams from Erie, Pennsylvania. We've got Demetrius Cox from Jeanette. We got Monte Nicholson from Pittsburgh Gateway High School, and Paul Lang from Mount Lebanon. Brandon Clemens is from over that way, okay, in Eastern PA there. So we've got some guys that this is a big game for them. This is an important game. This is their game to measure up. You know, this is the game that is their Ohio State game or their Michigan game if they're from that state, if they're from the state of Pennsylvania, great state of Pennsylvania. And so that's going to be very exciting for them. As far as where they're at as football players, I think they're two very talented players that could have gone anywhere in the country pretty much as players. Both of them have shock. Both of them are explosive players. They have great ball skills. I think they're coming. One's a sophomore. One's a redshirt junior. One's a true sophomore. One's a redshirt junior. And I think they're developing into very, very good players for us. And I think we're strong. You know, obviously we started Kari Willis and Grayson Miller at the Michigan game, and they played very well. They're very good players as well, but they're freshmen. Matt Morrissey rounds that out. Mark Myers has played here in the past too. So we have 6 safeties that have game experience. But I think those two guys have ball skills, are sudden, are explosive, and should continue to get better and better and better. But, you know, I'll let them know when they get on my bus. They're not on the bus yet.
Mark, obviously replacing Ed Davis this season was going to be a tall task, but are you surprised at how well John's done that, and what growth have you seen from him through this season? Yeah,
it's a good question. John Reschke, we knew was a great football player and knew that he would play a lot for us this year. He'd been banged up injury-wise a little bit. And when Ed went out, you know, he became the immediate guy here, Chris Fry. And John has certainly developed into a playmaker for us. So, but he figured on playing a lot this year, probably more in either the Mike linebacker in and out for Riley or the money going in and out for Ed. But he's developed into, I think, a very, very good football player.
Time for one more. Anyone else?
So just following up on that with Ed Davis, is there any update on that in terms of his intentions and, you know, what the likelihood of him possibly getting a 6th year?
Yeah, Ed intends to come back for a 6th year, and I think that I think he qualifies for that. Brandon Clemens intends to come back for a 6th year, and he qualifies for that. And then I believe Damon Knox plans to come back for a 6th year, and I think he qualifies for that. Although Ed and Damon will go out for senior day just to get double recognition, I guess. But their intentions, I think, are to come back, and they're good players, and it strengthens our football team. But that's the plan anyway. But, obviously you have to submit all the paperwork, and they have to graduate as well.
Nice luck, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Coach, you got live interview on